please join me in welcoming Lerato.
Guys, it's been a pleasure coming here. 26 hours with. I hope that shows my commitment and coming to come address you guys. Even though Billen did not give me a lot of time, she gave me Monday. It takes 30 days to come to your prestigious country to get a visa. I had to work it out in 4 days, so I'm grateful I'm here, and thanks for the invitation. How I'll be beginning my presentation to you guys, I will first start by giving you a background in terms into South Africa and how we got to where we are currently. And then I will move on to the programs that were implemented and how the Fees Must Fall campaign started in terms of why and how we came up with the formation of it, the strategies, the planning, the integral details of it. The background of South Africa in terms of where we come from, we are very militant in terms of fighting the shackles of oppression and segregation in our country. This goes back to the youth of 1976 under the leadership of Steve Bantu Biko. They wanted to bring down the then apartheid regime strategy of Bantu education, which said that the medium of instruction to all students, of black students, will be Afrikaans. In 1976, the youth had a march in Soweto, which was deemed the Soweto Uprising, which I'm sure many of you know of, which a lot of students were killed because of that, because of their fight to be liberated from Bantu education and a system of oppression and holding them down. In 1994, South Africa became a democracy and realized this democratic dispensation. During this period, in June 1994, the then elected party, the ruling party, which is the ANC, the African National Congress, said it will subscribe to the mandates of the Freedom Charter, which said that free education for all will happen in South Africa. Through doing that, the ANC government started implementing different programs to realize free education. They started a program called NSFAS. NSFAS is the National Students Funding Association, which is a loan mechanism for students to access, poor and disadvantaged students to access in terms of reaching higher education, which the government will partially fund their studies and they will repay it. This system has been, if I'm kind, has been very disorganized and not up to scratch in terms of the accessibility of it and the funding mechanisms for it. In terms of, it has not continued to grow as student enrollment has grown. And the majority of these students that apply for NSFAS due to our country's history is usually black students who cannot afford, which is mostly around about 80% of the country. Thus, in 2007, the ANC government, through its policy realization at its policy conference, again reasserted that they need to now implement free education as an immediate step to redressing the imbalances of the past through the apartheid government. They made a policy about it, but 2015, we still didn't have it. We were tired as the students of hearing an organization that had liberated us and that had promised us in a mineral-rich country such as South Africa, that is, in terms of the world, South Africa has the most minerals of any other country in the world. And we are not benefiting from those minerals as the youth in terms of moving forward. So in 2015, a lot of students were not able to get into university, and the universities were now about to increase again, after which they had been doing for multiple years, an increase of 10.5%, which is above inflation, which they have been doing. They've been doing double-digit increases for years. So when we started on this Fees Must Fall campaign of ours, we had, before we had started in 2015, in January, we had done a 1 million 1 month campaign to raise funds for students that couldn't access university, because how the university system in South Africa is set up is that all upfront payments, you must have at least an upfront payment for you to be able to register, which is around about 30 to 40%. And in January, you can imagine, no one has 30 to 40% of their fees upfront. For international students, it's worse. It's around about 80% that they need to have upfront before they can even register. So most students couldn't get into university. And students that wanted to go and graduate couldn't get their results if they still had outstanding debt. So they couldn't apply for jobs, they couldn't leave, they couldn't graduate. So in terms of this happening and the realization of this happening, we were engaging, as we're done, in good faith, in many years, with the Council and Senate of universities, which we only hold two seats on university senates, as the SRC president and the treasurer general, which we kept on being outvoted for various reasons. They kept on giving us excuses, and this had been done for a number of years, 8 years in terms of the last militant strike that happened at WITS. And university management was starting to get comfortable. And our constituencies on the ground were starting to get very disgruntled. So we are voting you guys into power, and you guys are sitting in air-conditioned rooms with management, eating their fancy platters, going to their dinners, while we are here and we can't afford fees, and you guys keep on being outvoted, and all you can come back to us and say is sorry. And we kept on relaying this message to Senate and management. And they kept on saying, listen, you need to be in control of your youth. And, that's why they elected you. And we're like, you know what? Shut up, boss. It's fine. We'll be in control of our youth and management. Okay. So we went to the students and said, guys, these people say we need to be in control and that we are not listening to you in terms of you are not listening to us. And we said to them, guys, what I think management needs to realize is that we listen to you and you guys give us our mandate. We are only there to project what you guys want in your mandate. So the only way we can get management to listen to you guys, because they think this is coming from us, we need to humble management and we need to show them a sense of force. So it was a practical decision in terms of our strategy to do this, and it also was a symbolic gesture. We blocked off all entrances of university, of WITS, all entrances. No one was able to come in or out. And the symbolism of that was that you can't come into university because you can't pay to get into it. In terms of the fees are too high and you can't afford the upfront payment. And you can't leave because you can't afford to pay your outstanding debt and get your certificate. So when we blocked this, all the entrances, we said to management, and the reason why we were done at this period in time, in October, this was just before exams were to commence, right? So this was the most crucial time for management to listen to us and hear our plight as students. So when we blocked all entrances and access points to the university, we said we will not let management speak to us through the media or through an email. If they want to address us, they need to humble themselves and come down from their ivory tower on the 11th floor of Senate House, and come down to the gates. Granted, some students were not appreciative of our gesture in terms of, mostly it was students who came from very privileged backgrounds, and in our country, it was mostly white students which had the privilege of being able to access higher learning education, which thought what we were doing was disadvantaging other students that wanted to go through. But what they didn't understand was that this fight was not just a black and white issue or a social class issue. It was everyone's fight, that if we do not educate the youth of South Africa, we have no future as a country, because the youth of South Africa is the future of the country. So when we continued this, eventually on the second day, the police were called to campus. But there's a problem with the police being called to campus in South Africa, which the dean did not read our constitution very carefully, and which we had done as students and prepared for this for a long time. The Constitution of South Africa does not allow police to come on to university campus if there is no threat to life or property. And the university, which he didn't realize, when they came to the gate, the police said, but we can't, are these all students of the university? And they said, yes, we can't access the university. We can only stand outside. And if they want to block it, it's then their due right and their constitutional right to do so. Thus resulting in the man himself, our vice chancellor, to go and get an interdict from the courts, which he tried to then get an interdict as well on the hashtag fees must fall as well in the courts, which he was granted. But the problem is with the interdict that he got, as still as well stipulated that only if there's a threat of life and property will the police come onto the campus. And the nature of our protest was a non-violent protest and a very peaceful one that was characterized. So this put him in a huge predicament as the vice chancellor. So eventually on the fourth day, he came down he flew down from Durban, a city close to 2 hours in terms of flight away from Johannesburg. He came back to campus because we said we will not be addressed by anybody else besides the vice chancellor of this university. Because if he says he's the leader of this university, then he must show leadership and humble himself wherever he is and come down to the gates, to where his students, his clients, the people he serves, and not the people he serves in boardrooms, because we pay his salary and we are the ones he should be educating and listening to. When he came back from Durban, he came back to one of the access point gates on Empire Road in our university to come address us. The first statement he made was, guys, I cannot freeze university fees from increasing. And we said, stop right there. If that is the case, then there's no need for you to talk. Get us someone who can freeze it. Because we are tired of excuses and hearing what you can't do. Then if you can't do it, then the university is under new management. And that management is the students. And to show him that your management is under the students, we told him you will sit down and you will humble yourself amongst the students that you represent, because we put you there and we constitute you there. And he sat down on the floor. And we said to him, make a call to the board of directors of the university, who you say can make the decisions, to come down wherever they are around the country. Senate must come and it must convene an emergency meeting. And he said that is impossible for all of them to arrive that evening. And we said, that's fine, we can wait. We've been waiting for more than 20 years for free education and for things to freeze. What's a couple of more days, a couple of more hours waiting? But if we're gonna wait, you're gonna wait with us. He made the call. When he made the call, the Senate and the Board of Directors of the university did not believe the severity of the situation. We then moved from the gates of the university, and we moved to the administrative block of the university and occupied it. If you see, there will be a picture that will be there of Wits Water's run, where we moved and we made him sit on the floor there and made him call and wait. Eventually, Senate had to fly in from all over the world and the country and meet us at Senate House, which they convened an emergency Senate meeting in front of the students, because as the SRC, we said, we are tired of speaking behind closed rooms, and now you guys have made the students vilify us as we are the ones that are not projecting their message to you. So now they must see the kind of individuals we are dealing with, and now you give excuses to the students and not to us. So when Senate sat there, the chairperson of Senate said, very arrogantly so, that could not happen for him to freeze education fees. For fees not to increase. And we said to him, it can happen, and it will happen, and you are not leaving until it does happen. We're not holding you hostage, we're just welcoming you home, because this is our university, and we're all home. So what do you mean we're holding you hostage? Because there's no one holding you with guns. There's a hostage situation. It's someone being taken away from their home against their own free will. And we said, you are home, so sit tight. We're about to sort this out. He sat tight with the whole of Senate until the next morning, and at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he said they will freeze university increases for next year. Right? But the problem with him doing that, which we know is them being disingenuous, we said, because we had three things that we had fought for when he started this. We said we needed a free of education, of varsity fees increasing. Right? There must be no increase, and there must be no increase in upfront payments. And the second one was transformation of the university. of that more black lecturers will come lecture at the university to represent the demographics of the university and the country. The third point that we stressed on in solidarity, in which these people have been, they were some of the students' mothers and fathers, the no outsourcing of university workers, of the cleaners and the laborers that clean the toilets, the people that cut the gardens. We said there'll be no more outsourcing of university workers, there will only be insourcing of university lecturers in solidarity, because some of these mothers couldn't even use the bathrooms that they cleaned because the university did not allow them. And the academic staff, children were allowed to come to the university for free, but outsourced workers, children were not. And these the way the university ran in terms of outsourcing workers, they always put the blame on companies that hired them in terms of the minimum wage that were paid. They did not take any responsibility. And we said we cannot face ourselves every day by coming to university with mothers and fathers that we see every day suffering, and we are okay. And these are the people that we go to home to that are some people's fathers and mothers. So we said there will be an insourcing of all and no outsourcing of university staff and lecturers. Which again was met by hostility, and they said it's impossible because it will increase the wage bill of the university, which is unsustainable. And we said, listen, they found 16 million rands, round about, I think in US dollars, 1.6 million US dollars to renovate the Vice Chancellor's house. They can find money to not outsource workers. And truth be told, he said he could not do it and they refused, and we reached a stalemate. That is when other universities across the country, having our same plight, started joining our movement of fees must fall. Where we started mobilizing via systems that the Department of Higher Education had actually put in place, which now they regret, of making SRCs, such as a conference like this, SRCs nationally meet, discuss. So we had already developed networks. So we had now started sharing our strategies of them shutting it down. So they started shutting down. We started shutting down every university across the country systematically and in a peaceful manner. And once we were doing that, that became a problem because that upset the academic program of the whole country and put it to a standstill, which now you get government to get involved. And they were the key drivers in terms of that we needed to get involved in coming up with a long-term solution of realizing free education. Because we were saying that we understand, okay, we don't understand, but we'll compromise. That we understand that free education cannot happen in 2016. We want a no-fee increase in 2016. But come the end of 2016, you must give us a date of when free education will be implemented in South Africa and how it will be funded. So the government refused to meet us. They said, okay, we cannot not freeze an increase of 10.5%. We will make it 6%. And we said that's not good enough. And we continued shutting down universities. So as universities, then we decided to march on the legislative capital. UCT decided to march on the legislative capital of Parliament in South Africa, where they were met with tear gas, gunfire, and some students were hurt. That did not deter us. Then we had the ultimate march, where we went to the union buildings, where the president and the executive sit, as all universities across South Africa, and said, you will give us what we want, or we will not leave, or we will enter the union buildings forcefully, whether you like it or not. This is our country, it is not yours, so you will not sit on a pedestal. You will humble yourself among students and come down to us. Otherwise, we'll make this country ungovernable, and we'll burn it, and it will have to rise from the ashes. So the pictures that you see there, the pictures that you see there are not an act of barbarianism. There was actually logic to the madness. The madness was that if you do not come down, that fire will spread. and it will spread across the country, and you will see your country go up in flames if you do not address us and address higher education. The president then convened an emergency meeting while we were at the union buildings with all stakeholders involved, all student representative union, all ministers involved in terms of higher education, all business sector that was involved, and they had to come up with a solution. And he said, on this day when we were marching there, and he said, we will not have fee increases in South Africa, and he will start up a presidential commission that by 2017, free education, a framework for it, and a funding model for it must be start to be implemented. So fees then fell on that day in terms of there was not an increase in terms of fees. But the fight was not over because we were still in solidarity with the workers and the transformation. So the president said he had done his part. Now it was up to universities to then sort out the different transformation aspects and the insourcing of workers, because he said he would fund the funding gap for that, which then we went back to our respective universities and still blocked the gates until, because there's one thing that happens with university management and boardroom dynamics is that people always give you the answers of, yeah, we'll discuss it, we'll start an inquiry, and they'd been doing that for 20 years. And we said, listen, our answers are simple, yes or no. We don't want inquiries, we don't want a maybe, we don't want commissions. Either it's a yes or a no. We then went on for another week in terms of blocking all these entrances and no academic activity continuing. Until then, management and university said they will insource all work at universities. They will now transform all universities in terms they will hire more black. We gave them targets. They even went over and above that and said they will scrap all debt by all final year students who still need to graduate from universities. Also, we said because our universities have a mechanism of then charging students who are involved in the strike. We said then they must put a term that no students will be charged for striking in this movement. And students will be given 2 weeks before they write their exams. And no education, no studying material will continue from when we'll stop only when we started striking. No new material will be examinable to not disadvantage students that participated in this movement because we're so close to the final year exams, which all our demands were then abided to by the university. So the notion that you cannot stop a country because you are young and we haven't got the power and you haven't got money is a very wrong notion. Because welcome to South Africa, where we stop countries because education is very important to us. And it should not be commodified, and it should not become big business. Education is not a privilege, it's a right. And Nelson Mandela said to us that if the ANC government does to you what the apartheid government did to us, then do to the ANC government what we did to the apartheid government. And that's what we did in terms of we made them listen. So what I would advise you now in terms of coming, especially with what I was saying to Billen in terms of the Canadian Federation of Students and all Canadian universities, you've got a new government that has come into play. They have no policy in terms of, they are now in the formation of their policy strategies. You influence that. You make them write their new policy. Don't leave them alone behind boardrooms and to write these policies of how to move forward. Make them write that free education in Canada must happen under their watch. Not tomorrow, not whenever, today. And do not compromise until they give you a yes or no. Don't listen to the rhetoric of that it's not feasible, it is not. There's a lot of other things that they can take away. They can take away their fancy cars, their fancy clothes, their jets, whatever it might be to fund that, if that must be. So as it was an honor for me to come here and present to you guys this Fees Must Fall movement that we've achieved in South Africa, and where free education will be realized in our lifetime, to make it short for our kids. Thank you very much.